Why not? Okay, let's bring on some people.
I got it.
Two callers.
Yeah.
Oh shit! It's Dev. I guess I got to stay and
Dev
wait.
in history speaks. Couple of famous caller-ins.
Famous caller inners. Okay, hi guys, you're live.
And you're muted. Both of you.
Yeah, well, that's on your ends, gang. I'm not sure. We're going to get to Super Chats at the end of the stream, gang. I will read Super Chats. It will be at the end of the stream. Don't worry.
Hello.
You did not miss the
How's it
Super
going?
Chats. Yeah. Hello, Dev.
That was a shit show.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It was pretty great.
I thought it was
I thought it was absolutely hilarious.
And Destiny,
Okay.
thank you for the raid on YouTube. I really appreciate you. Okay.
Oh, that's sweet.
Destiny's watchers are watching. Okay.
Dev, I am hungry. Do you have anything that I need to address?
I don't think so. If you want to go eat.
Okay. I parasocially love you guys. Looking forward to the next fight. Sorry for using homophobic language and ableist
Cool.
language. I'll catch you next time.
Okay. See you later.
See you later,
Okay.
man.
So what you guys are here. You have some questions for Econoboy or Pisco? They're the ones that stayed.
Yes,
Go ahead,
Econoboy.
please. Hit it.
I've read your Substack. I know what's going on. I
believe when Dev says he read a thing, I believe him. He probably really did read that entire thing.
So when you say that this is socialism, I don't buy it. It's sovereign wealth funds, and it's from what I understand, it's like publicly owned stock portfolios. I don't see the socialism.
It's collective ownership of the means of production.
Okay, but like that could
That could mean a lot of different things. I agree.
It's a broad term. Why are you guys like immune to like people use the term? Do you agree? People use the term to refer to like socialized medicine, and that is how it's used. Do you agree that single payer healthcare is socialized policy?
I don't think so. I wouldn't put it there.
People use that term to refer to those kinds of things, right?
Well, but Dev, really quick,
Yeah,
please go.
but
Dev,
people are retarded though.
Well, Dev, for instance, okay, I don't think it's retarded to say that single-payer healthcare is like a socialist institution. For instance, right, many countries do have privately owned for-profit insurance companies. However, in like your country, Canada, that's a publicly owned service, right? Like it's a socially owned means of production. The thing that they're producing is the service of providing insurance.
Well, no, the insurance is funded by taxes, but the actual hospitals and the clinics, they're all privately owned. Yeah.
All right, no, and I'm not making any broader of a claim.
Insurance,
the insurance industry, and I understand you guys have some private options. I'm just saying that, there's some private schools, but it's mostly public schools. You could have totally private insurance. You don't. You have mostly publicly owned and democratically accountable insurance. And I'm not saying that makes Canada a socialist country, but it makes Canada a country with one more socialist institution than other countries that have private insurance.
See, whenever I've debated other socialists who weren't you on this topic, I've pointed out that you could then go over to Nazi Germany, and they had a lot of similar things where the state was involved in production. And they go, no, and they really don't want to give that up.
Policies. Wait, they did have some socialist policies.
My answer to that would be that I think there is probably a meaningful semantic disagreement about what it means to own something, right? So I think that where most socialists are coming from is they would typically say, these are like the same types that would say like the USSR isn't like really socialism because it wasn't democratic in nature. It wasn't true horizontal ownership and like democratic ownership, public ownership, because the public didn't really like own and hold accountable the institutions of Nazi Germany, even though they were government owned. And so I think there probably is a meaningful difference in the type of ownership that the Nazi government provided to its citizens and the type of ownership that like the Canadian government provides to its citizens. Sorry. But to the extent that we just want to say like, hey, like anything that's owned like by the government, I guess is like a form of collective ownership that falls in the socialist canon. Like, yeah, places like the USSR or like you could even say like Nazi Germany had those kinds of institutions. But semantically, I do think that there's probably a meaningful difference. But I'm not going to fight you that hard on the label. I just happen to think that when it comes to collective ownership of the means of production, the model that I provide is certainly a vast collectivization of the means of production. And that makes it, that makes our society much more socialist than it was before my model is implemented, essentially.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's just that this definition of socialism means that it really does boil down to the right-wing meme of socialism is when the government does stuff.
Well, Dev, would you agree? Would you agree that I keep using the Labor government because it's just the one I'm most familiar with. Would you agree that the Attlee government was a socialist government that engaged in the process of implementing socialism? And the way that they did that was nationalizing industries
I'm not sure. So he was a Fabian, right?
I do want to maybe broaden the discussion just a little bit because it's going to be
Yeah, it's
foresee
semantic. This is what I mean. It is semantic. So like,
very-
so what is the actual
really quick,
disagreement here?
Really quick, this, to be fair, is not semantic. I'm just asking Dev if he recognizes that, like, literally Attlee called himself a socialist, and the
Correct, yeah, he
socialists
did.
in the Labor Party, they at least thought that they were doing socialism by the policies
Correct.
that they enacted.
Well, I do know that they viewed themselves as that, but I'm not sure how you view yourself as all that important, because I know that you guys think that
What's
that
the right
Trump,
meaning of a
hold
word,
on.
Dev? Wait, Dev,
Well,
what's the
hold
right
on.
meaning of a word? What do you mean by that?
What do you mean by what I mean?
Like, yeah, so you're like, it's not true socialism. Like, what is a word? What does a word objectively mean, separate apart from how it's used by like some mass of people or by experts in a given context? I guess I don't have. Do you have an ideology for what words should mean?
Okay, I understand that point. This is the definition as used. I get it, but like, if I were to come in here and call myself a fascist, but not actually believe in anything fascist, then it's like, well, I'm using the word that way. It's like, well, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but
there are meanings to things.
No, Dev, I would agree that there's an agglomeration of facts that we would typically associate with, like, what words mean, obviously. But I would say that my point in this panel, and my point in so many of the people, especially in Destiny's community, that are saying, what is Econoboy talking about? These governments weren't socialist, they were social democrats, despite the fact that they were contemporaries of socialist movements in the USSR and Mao. They made arguments against those forms of socialism. They took their own power and did their own version of socialism. And even going all the way back to Marx, contemporaries of Marx debated Marx on what socialism really meant, because there's obviously a diverse tradition of what this word really, really means, right? But there's a big tradition, just like there's a big tradition of what capitalism really means.
Or
but
Christianity, or any other label. Like,
the last thing I was going to say,
Yeah, that's all true. That's all true. I agree.
I would say the single biggest through line to what socialism means, the largest universe of socialism, is the collective ownership of the means of production, which is a project that all of those governments that I referenced engaged in, and it's the project that I'm engaged in by proposing my model on my Substack.
So, if that's the definition you're using, then most governments have been socialist in some way or another.
I agree.
Well, then it's not that useful of a label to describe different types
I just
of
want to be clear. That's not what we are talking about when we use the word socialist. That's not what I am talking about, right? That's not what I don't think Dev is referring to that. I don't think a lot of
as long as we understand the differences of the words that we're using, that's fine. I'm just saying that, like, I understand that
if I understand that because the panel's over, right? And I know I jump in a lot, right? But I can jump in more. Okay,
yeah, that's fine. Go for it.
The problem I'm having specifically, and we've talked about this before, I believe, at least in tangentially, Econoboy, is I think that you are laundering the term in such a way that bad actors are saying, yeah, I'm a socialist too, like Econoboy socialist, but I don't believe they're actually honest in what they're saying.
Yeah,
I think that I frankly think Straighteraid, and she's welcome to come on at this point. Jump backstage, we can pull you in, right? And you can answer for your crimes, so to speak. But I think Straighteraid was just telling the truth that a lot of people who use the term socialist are just communists.
I've already agreed that there's going to be a margin of people that have like ulterior motives when they use the label. However, what I would say is this: I understand that to a lot of people listening, it sounds confusing and arguably like it arguably sounds like ridiculous to say that every government does some kind of socialism when they do like collective ownership of the means of production, right? However, what we have to understand is two things at once can be true. That socialism and capitalism, in some senses, are binaries, right? That capitalism is the private ownership of the means of production. Socialism is the collective ownership of the means of production.
Sure, it's a spectrum to an extent. Okay? Every economy is a spectrum economy. I get it.
Well, it's not just that they're a spectrum, but there's also a process by which socialism comes into being. That we didn't have socialism or socialist institutions, and then eventually in a socialist ideal, every institution is a socialist institution. And in doing the process of bringing socialism into being, that is to bring privately owned means of production into collective ownership. And so during that process, you're going to end up like we live today. And I'm not a historical materialist. I'm not saying it's inevitable. Like we live in today, though, where pretty much every society is a mixture of capitalist and socialist institutions. And that's the only
Boy,
point that I'm
I'm so
making.
sorry for interrupting you, Econo Boy.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
History
shoot.
speaks.
Yeah, I guess I just have a few questions for the panel. So first, Econo Boy, do you actually prioritize? So you're socialist or whatever. Do you prioritize liberalism and democratic choice over socialism or the public ownership of the means of production? Because traditionally, the first principle, of course, was public ownership of the means of production, and that's also how you frankly get so many of these authoritarian regimes, because they're not willing to acknowledge democratic choice if it comes out in a way that isn't communistic.
Yeah, but no. So I'm steeped in the oceanic and European tradition of democratic socialism, where I would say that I do take seriously the principles of democracy, right? And so I would agree that there's certainly a tradition of socialism that does not take seriously the tradition of liberal democracy. I'm just not part of that like more narrow universe of socialists. I'm on another end of the socialist spectrum universe.
Okay, beautiful. Does anyone have like?
Well,
Go ahead, Dad.
here's my contention,
you were
though, is that,
DMing
like,
me a bunch of shit during the show.
Yes, I was.
Right?
This is a shit show. No, Economy. It just seems like you're rescuing the label of socialist from the dustbin of history. But if we flip the tables on this, you wouldn't accept this if it was being done for the label of fascist. If there were like good fascists who come along and say, you know what, I'm not like those old fascists. I'm going to be a democratic fascist. We have some differences of opinion.
Or is the
like,
example of a tradition of fascism where it contemporarily, like Econoboy's pointed to, where that it emerged that there was this group of plausibly nice fascists.
I think there are cuddly socialists, but there's not cuddly fascists, at least from my reading of history. Maybe History Speaks can speak on that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, socialism has a much broader tradition. There's a Western tradition that I think, as opposed to the East and the Eastern Europe and the Third World, where Econoboy probably falls into. So I think the label is different than fascism. But I guess I'm just interested in how he thinks. I guess one other question I have for all of you guys.
Wait, do you agree? Wait. Do you agree that there's a huge? I just want to get like an agreement. Like you agree, therefore, don't you, with Econoboy, that it's fundamentally different and that it's not as problematic? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Oh, and also, even if we go for Marxism,
I'm not sure I do, but go ahead.
Okay, but even I would even say this: even if we're just making the comparison, Marxism, Leninism to Nazism, it's not a difficult discussion. I mean, you have Joseph Stalin, yes, you have Mao Zedong, but even those cases I don't think are comparable evils to Hitler. But you also have like Khrushchev or Mikhail Gorbachev or Castro. I mean, I'm not saying these are good regimes, but it's not even the same moral.
They're horrible.
Hold on, I want to take issue with this because okay, I'll even grant you that. But it's like saying, well, would you rather be burned alive or be thrown off a building? Thrown off the building is probably going to hurt less, right? It's probably better in every conceivable way. But at the end of the day, you're still dead. It's still not something you want. It's still something that's very, very bad. Right?
Why do you keep ignoring Econoboy's example, contemporary example of a socialist tradition?
Because they don't they exist in a liberal framework. Right? They exist in a liberal framework.
He's a
liberal. He's a liberal.
Really quick. Wick, we had this whole conversation about how even Marx himself said that lower stage communism would be stamped with the society of its past. That obviously,
I don't have a problem with the
obviously you would have no, but you're saying.
But I have a problem with some of the people who you are, in my opinion, running cover for.
But wait, you're making 2 points at once. You're making 2 points at once. You're making you're making 1 point, which is that kind of socialism only exists in liberal frameworks. I'm saying socialism and liberal frameworks are entirely compatible, and in fact predicted to be compatible by Marx.
I'm going to grant you all that.
Now,
I'm going to grant you all that because that doesn't matter to my point. My point is that there is a sizable number of people who call themselves socialist who are not you, Econoboy. They do not share your values. They are simply using your label, and you are laundering the term for them.
And I'm going to grant you that.
Bad things to destroy liberal democracy.
Related to this, do we actually think San, Trader Mike from PA, that these people are actually serious about an authoritarian system?
Yes, Mike from PA. I can't speak to Straight Aid, but Mike from PA, Hassan, Absolutely yes. They
Wait,
absolutely
Yes.
if we gave
I
them
don't
power
think-
to do what they
wait,
wanted to do.
I-
It would be a tyrannical
I have a
regime.
problem
There would
with
be
the
blood on the
assumption.
streets.
I have a problem with the assumption. One of the assumptions is that Aaron is in favor of an authoritarian regime. I don't have any evidence of that.
Again, I
Aaron,
said aside
let's
from
take Aaron
story
out of
raid,
that.
we're talking about.
Okay.
Aaron is
I'm talking
a good
about Mike from
example.
PA.
Let's talk about
I'm talking
Hassan
about
and Mike.
Hassan. I am very familiar with them, and I'm telling you, I believe with all my heart, right? And I have evidence that they would be authoritarian in a way that if they had control and if they had power, far worse than Trump. And I don't like Trump. I voted against Trump. I think Trump is a currently the biggest threat to free speech, for example, that we've ever seen, right? But I am telling you, if Mike from PA and Hassan had the power that Trump has, they would be worse.
Democratic socialists and cooperativists predate all of these like tankies or whatever. The fucking
Cool.
That's fine, right? So the tankies, right? They pretend to be democratic. Most of them say that if they weren't democratic, they wouldn't be socialist. So they're all putting that in their line, right? All of this collective ownership, this collectivization, it's all because of the idea that there should be democratic collective control. All of these people are lying, right? They're using our label to run cover for themselves. They're trying to steal our label. They're trying to steal the label of a good movement to try and run a bad movement. That doesn't mean that we're running cover for them.
I would just point out, I think there's an argument, it's speculative and maybe accusatory, that some of these people are confused. Let's leave Aaron out of it because we like Aaron. I'll be honest.
Well, I just don't know enough about I just
Yeah,
don't know
okay,
enough
but
about
let's
Aaron
talk
to
about
make
Hassan, for example, or Mike from PA.
I will say the
they're
clips I just saw from Aaron they make me want to ask more questions. Now I have concerns, right?
Well, so come
That's
on.
because,
but
but it's circular, right? Because the whole question is, does communism entail authoritarianism?
Yes.
And you're saying, wow, she called herself a communist.
Communism necessarily entails authoritarianism. Yes, by definition.
But the whole point is, but the question is itself, does communism entail authoritarianism? You can't just point to a clip of someone saying they're a communist to prove that communism entails authoritarianism. You must agree with that.
But you understand that
Spanish
you can say I'm wrong. You can say I'm wrong. Hold on. You can say I'm wrong, right? You can say I'm wrong. But I believe
I'm saying it's circular.
that
You acknowledge it's circular.
communism necessarily entails authoritarianism.
You're trying
so
to
when
prove
I
that,
say,
right? So
if I may finish,
that's the whole question.
if I may finish,
Oh
when
my
I
God.
say that, hey, those clips of someone calling themselves a communist make me concerned and want to ask more questions, that is entirely consistent with everything that, again,
because this
I
is
believe
important.
in.
Do you
You
think
can
that-
say
hold
I'm
on.
wrong, and that's fair.
No, the whole thing. No, I'm not saying I'm saying it's circular. The thing we're trying to prove, the thing in contention is, does communism entail a certain thing, violence, authoritarianism? And you're saying, oh my God, Aaron called herself a communist, but you must acknowledge.
To temper people's answers on that, to kind of force them to answer the question, is essentially like, would you rather be born at a random point in time during the history of the USSR, or a random point in time during the history of Nazi Germany? And I think almost everybody would say,
or any
like,
Marxism.
I was just gonna say,
I think it depends,
sure,
actually,
but
Economo. I think it depends.
Well, no. But the question is, it's random, and let's say also you don't know what place in society you're gonna be born into. You might be born, into
AOC
Ukraine during
represents
the
some sort of
purge under Stalin. You might be born a Jew in Nazi Germany, but you might be born part of the aristocracy in both societies. I think the answer that most people would give is that the typical experience of a citizen in the USSR, for example, is probably better in a number of ways than the typical experience of a person in Nazi Germany.
See, I don't know about that. I'd have to look at the numbers. I'd have to look over basically what were the populations of both countries and what were the populations of the oppressed peoples of both countries, and then run the math and what's the percentage of you end up in the bottom. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, surely there's no serious conversation.
Easy, though.
I am so angry at myself. We're back live, by the way. On the if you want to watch it on my end, you're saying it wasn't even my connection. I stepped on the power cord on the power button, and it just
nice, dude.
I am so angry at myself. Wick L, okay, Wick L's in chat, okay, but no, we're back. Anyway,
do you want to?
We're gonna cycle out. We're gonna cycle out. Give me a second. My
only point though is surely though in the Soviet Union, there's no after Stalin's death, there's no leader who's could even have an adult conversation about being in the same realm of evil as Hitler, like Khrushchev, Gorbachev, Brezhnev.
Even
of course.
That's true. That's true. However, if you could look at other post World War II fascist regimes that were more stable, and they were still extremely evil. I'm not going to sit here and simp for them, but still, you might want to be in one of those rather than in Russia.
One thing I think counts against.
Maybe you want to be in Argentina. Maybe you want to be in Portugal.
Okay,
You know?
I'm gonna
We're talking
cycle.
about Nazism, though.
Yeah, last
He's
point. Then I'm gonna
cycling.
cycle people. Okay.
Okay.
I think I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you
Wait,
for.
Wick, I have a
Oh,
question.
ask your question, please.
What the fuck do you think socialism is?
What the fuck do I think socialism is? Well, as I understand it, it is seizing the means of production, right? For the worker. It is a stepping stone to communism.
Wait, so you don't think it would be socialist if we had like fully automated luxury, like just a fully automated economy that was democratically controlled?
Gay space communism.
It might be.
Gay
I'd have
space
to think
communism,
more
yeah.
into it, but
I mean-
again, the
So it has
socialism
nothing to do
that
with the
I am
worker, right?
concerned
It's
about.
just
Hold on,
democracy.
the
It's always
socialism I am
democracy.
concerned about is
Also,
not
do you
that.
think that the Soviet Union? Do you think that the Soviet
Hold on.
Union?
Do you can you
think
answer
that
my
the Soviet
question?
Union do you think that the Soviet
Okay,
Union?
do you
seized
think that
economy for
I'm
the
concerned
worker?
about that socialism, or do you think that there's another type of socialism that I'm concerned about?
Make your
Which one?
statement more clear.
If
Wick.
you're
Isn't that
concerned
problem-
about that,
I
if you're
can't
concerned about
even
that
be
kind of
clear.
socialism,
Socialism
then
that
you
wants to
shouldn't even fucking
destroy
call it
and dismantle
socialism.
liberal democracy.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
against
okay.
that.
You shouldn't call
Yeah.
that socialism. You shouldn't even
Okay.
begin to call
I
it
am
socialism.
telling you
just
that there are
define
people
socialism,
you are,
and you define
again-
socialism in a way. You
Well-
define socialism in a way
Okay.
that doesn't include the people that you don't like.
Economics. You are defining
yes,
socialism as everything that's good.
You
No.
did.
You are. You
You did-
absolutely
you
are.
did that.
Fenomics.
hold on, I do
Femonomics.
actually
Whatever
want to
the
ask-
fuck your name is. I don't really know. But what I'm telling you
It's
is that you are
phenomics,
defining
yeah.
it in a useless way. That is not how I am using the term, but you are
What is it-
pretending,
it's a
for whatever
useless
reason,
way.
for your argument,
Yes,
that
you.
I have to be
Yes,
using
you.
it your way.
You
I am
think it
not.
is.
So
I asked
engage
you
with
what
me
the fuck you
on the
think
level
it
that
is.
I
asked
am
you
using the
what-
word.
Oh my god.
I didn't give you a definition. I asked
Let
you
me
what the fuck you
engage
think
with
the word
me
means.
on the level that I am using the word. Okay?
Okay.
And when I'm
then
telling
try
you
again.
on
Let's try
stream,
again. We'll try one more
live,
time.
that the type of socialism that I am concerned about, the type of socialism that I think I would contend that Econoboy and to a lesser extent Peace Corps are laundering, right? Laundering the label of. I
Is
think
the
that
one
there
that
are
wants to
bad
destroy the world.
actors that are
Cool.
coming in and telling you that, oh, we're the
How
good
am I
kinds of
laundering
socialists,
for that?
but they're
How am I
not
laundering
actually
that?
good socialists.
Yeah. Explain how I'm laundering that.
Okay, well, for example, when you don't push back very hard on people like the Vanguard, right? Which I do think is one of these.
We weren't even
harmful-
having a discussion about communism, liberalism. That was a conversation about Joe Biden.
Okay,
and his
if I had Nick
tactics.
Fuentes on and I had a conversation and my pushback against him was like things like, oh, well, I don't think you dress very well. Like, technically, I push back against him, but not on the important bits. If you have a conversation with the Vanguard, I expect you to push back on their Vanguard views.
to bring up this
And if you
conversation
don't
about
push back on their
socialism-
Vanguard views,
Okay.
I think that you are, in a sense, laundering those views.
So if we have a
In what way
conversation,
was the Soviet Union seizing the means of production for the worker? Right? What workers had control of the
I'll
means of
let
production?
you go,
in the Soviet
and
Union?
I'll let you look at the Wikipedia for that phenomics.
Oh no, I actually wanted to talk to. Oh,
It's okay. You can talk to him later. But yeah, let's bring on some new people.
I mean, to be honest, I should probably go too. I'm also
You should
just a guest
probably
here,
go
so-
too, but I love you, Def. Okay.